Spectre Senence here. This time I'm going to review the troop choices for Tyranids. We'll go through my army and we'll take a look at what I field, what I have, and then basically have an idea of what to do, or what you want to build for your army in the future. Alright, let's take a look.
Reviewing the troop choices from Hive Fleet Wraith. First off will be the Tyranid Warriors. There's some from the 4th edition. These ones coming back from 2nd edition. Pretty much see some armament with Death Spitters and Devourers. They are good. I think they're a little overpriced. The 3 wounds are nice. However, toughness 4 just puts them on the little of the weak side. Armor 4 makes them vulnerable to insta-death. So you got to be very careful how you want to use these guys. So they're a little bit more delicate. And an army that's going to take a lot of casualties because of the ranging is not great. Tyranid weaponry is alright. It's not highly effective like Imperial Guard or LR weaponry that can really do like death damages or have gimmicks that can really negate things. Those are basically found on the Hive Guard, which we talked about in the Elite section. So in that aspect, without the Tyranid Prime, with Ballistic Skill 3, you're really asking these guys to be shooting to be hard-pressed to kind of make up their points. A little better in close combat, but once again, the armor of 4 is just going to make them a little weaker, so they can take up a little bit. But as a troop choice, I just find them a little short, a little too expensive to make their points, making them really difficult to execute on the battlefield and really get what you want out of them. We'll move on to other troop choices, which are the better. These are the real specialists to me. This is where the Tyranid Warriors really should be at, but lacking effective is what the Gene Stealers are. Even from Space Hulk, these guys have been the terror of the 40k galaxy. GW has really made these guys like the movie Aliens from James Cameron's movie. They're just vicious. They might be weak in armor. Any bullet pretty much will take a Gene Stealer down, provided he can wound him. But Gene Stealers are ferocious once they get into close combat. They're high weapon skill, they're high initiative, making them strike first, giving them rending claws, really can take down anybody, wound anything. There's a good potential, a lot of attacks, and they're deadly. You upgrade Broodlords, some very old Broodlord from back in the Space Hulk days and this one a more recent one, which I've dubbed this one Grimlock because I think he's very cool. But the Broodlords really become a real issue for opponents to deal with, because as the unit is dying, their toughness 5 starts to stand out more, especially if he's just down to 1 of them. And then they can go out and really just tear up things on their own. There's still 3 wound models. So for an upgrade, not an independent character, upgrade in the unit where he can't be picked out, this is the really one few times you can do this in a Tyranid force. So you got to really take the Gene Stealers, and that aspect is being special and deadly. Hormigons, Termagants, they can't get that upgraded character and as deadly as the Broodlord. So you really want to look into these guys and bring a Gene Stealer unit and bring the Broodlord. It's what it's all about, because he's going to really tear things up. One of the powers that really make him deadly is Hypnotic Gaze. You cast the power, you beat the leadership value on a D6, and that character that you're opposing, your Broodlord, is not fighting. So that's a good way to just phase a powerful character out of play. And because they're leadership 10, you're not going to be being dominant. You're not fighting, rolling that die uphill. You pretty much will be at least winning in that aspect, because ties go to the Broodlord. So if you think about that, you can stop even Greeter Demons and any of those powerful characters just from fighting. So a really awesome choice. Gene Stealers are great additions to Tyranid armies. And as I'm a close combat guy, these guys really get the job done, outflanking, and really, really helpful with that. So the Termagants here, pretty much enough said. I don't go for the upgrades. I think they're a waste of points. I don't really build these Termagants to have anything. Flesh Borers, basic. Especially once you go to the Taveragon, once we get to that point, and you want to be able to pump models out, and if they're specialized, you can't use those models. So I really just go with basic Termagants, and that will get the job done. Again, the Tervaragon will have some synergy to help these guys out be more stronger, so don't waste points on them. Take as is, and they are awesome. Pretty much bring us to the Hormagaunts. This has been my bread and butter. This is where I'm all about. So the direction I go with Tyranids are based around these guys. A group of 30. Go 20, at least 20 plus higher models, but 30 is one of the groups I run max. I always try to have at least one unit of 30 in my army. They have old adrenal glands because I had them back in the day where that was a little bit more important. I don't run adrenal glands now because of the Swarm Lord can already give some of those things I want. But I do run the Toxin Sacs because that just makes this group more vicious. Now I'm going to bring this up a little bit more because for you Tyranid players, the unit here with Toxin Sacs can destroy almost anything in the 40k world. Because, except for vehicles, anything in transport, these guys will be hard pressed. That's the weakness to that aspect, so they need help busting open those tanks. However, any other model, they're going to run into lots of dice. These are 2-based, charging on 3, but the thing about this combination, which makes the Hormagaunts vicious in the world, so if you really put the points towards them, like Gene Stealers, but the point cost being a little bit more, you got to be careful how much more you're able to field for Gene Stealers. You can field so many Hormagaunts in terms of price. Now they come with Scything Talons. That's a reroll on 1s. So anytime you roll a 1, you get to reroll that. So you have a good chance of getting a lot of attacks generated with so many dice being rolled. The Toxin Sacs will wound on a 4, regardless of the opponent's toughness. So they can take down demon princes and monstrous creatures that are used to just shrugging off wounds from very weak strength infantry models. Hormagaunts don't run into that problem. Their toxin is gonna wound them on a 4. So that can really make these invulnerable save demons and things really die to these guys because they're just going to put a lot of tax on them. They're only going to lose minor in numbers and just make that player roll a lot of saves, and that's going to really bring them down. And you really, really got to go with that. I synergy the Tyranid army around this. When I do an army build, I will go over that more in detail. But at this moment right now, just think about this. 30 Hormagaunts with Toxin Sacs already equipped with Scything Talons. That is really like 90 attacks going in if every single one of them was in range and able to contact the model or be in 2 inches to help support another and wounding on 4s. And you're rerolling all 1s. And this is really where this unit gets devastating. I'm going to bring a couple from 3rd edition. Back then, you were able to equip a Hive node, give them leadership 10, and give 1 Rending Claws as mutants. Those models are gone, but they're just so wonderful pieces in my army. Thought I'd just give them a little bit of some homage from their days of serving Hive Fleet Wraith. Go into Ripper Swarms. This is kind of where I told you Parasite and Mortrix is not very popular with me, but if you look at these guys, they're pretty much the same, pathetic. They used to be kind of wonderful in tying units up, but being vulnerable to blast, insta-kill capacity, being toughness 3. I try to use them as screens, it just doesn't working, kind of a waste of 10 points. So I don't field them anymore. They can't claim objectives. They can't do anything. So even at 10 points, rather worthless, really not make anything. So we'll use them in Apocalypse for a big storyboard type of thing, maybe, where you're able to kind of just show little creatures running towards your enemy lines, but in any type of competitive play. These guys just don't make it. But you're going to see something similar to this that I do use when I get to fast attack with Sky Slashers, and I kind of want to still bring some of it. But these guys here, too slow, really not going to help a whole lot, and we'll try to, just not helping much in the fight. Okay, I mentioned these in the HQ review, but here I brought them back in the troop because these are my Tervaragons. The Orion Rex Spiders, once again, build is the second one I have just recently put in. I haven't really had a chance to field both at the same time. I've been fielding one forever. Why? They make more Termagants. So the reason why I don't make different models is because they only spawn basic Termagants, only with flesh spores. So you want to have lots of models. Now, Why am I using him in troop choices, not in HQ, or why don't I just put one in the HQ slot? Well, Tervergons are a great defensive type of creatures. They have some weaponry, but it's going to be limited with their ballistic skill and weapon skill. They're not all that great, and they're not going to do a lot of damage. And that's what I kind of reviewed in the HQ's part. What they do, however, is solidify the back of your army. More or less, if you look at an army's battle lines and then having reserves, that's what these guys do. They just really going to make your back line secure. And with their ability to cast Dominion, which can increase Synapse at 18 inches, you'll keep your rest of your force in play, especially with everything else getting in battle and flanking. You really want to have something that's going to be relatively able to keep your lines going. So that's what the Synapse power is. Where warriors are a little bit more vulnerable, this is a monstrous creature, toughness 6 wounds, 3 armor. That's a lot more staying power. And if you use synergy with Venom Thorps, you're giving them a 5+ cover save. I do give these guys regeneration, 30 points worth it. I've had Tervergons, especially this guy here, get beaten down, pretty much down to a single wound, and then start to regenerate its wounds back. The regeneration with 6 wound models is much more worth it because as you get more wounds, you're rolling more dice, which adds an opportunity, chance to get that 6 to recover the wound. On a Hive Tyrant with a 4, less likely to happen before he dies. However, 5 wounds could be up to 5 dice and still have 1 left. You could possibly get those wounds back. So that really makes it worthwhile. Really good upgrade. And then you want to give these guys Toxin Sacks. The Toxin Sacks, within 6 inches of a Termagant unit, will give them Toxin Sacks. You can do Adrenal Glands, but I don't often assault much with Termagants at extra points that I basically hold on to. The Toxin Sacks with poison is fine enough. Going first should be a big deal if you're rolling enough dice without rolling doubles to produce enough Termagants to basically make sure that they're overwhelming your opponent. Now, the other part of this being, this is a monstrous creature in a troop choice that now counts as scoring. Yes, a monstrous creature that is scoring. No other army is really boasting that capacity to really do that. So when you have this, although they're not aggressive, they're really not part of what my army is built on in defeating an opponent's assault units, HQ, or anything like that. They just kind of help out. Maybe they'll get a tank if it's foolish enough to roll nearby. But they're really just securing objectives. Go after the objectives, sit on that Claymont, spew a lot of Termagants all over the objective, and basically say, this is the weakest stuff. They're not killing anything, but either they're tough as monstrous creatures, or they're spawning so many units of Termagants in the objective that it's going to take a lot of your opponent to concentrate to clear them out. That is the Tyranid tactic that's pretty much worked for me. The Hormagants are deadly. They're going to go into combat and clean things up, as will the Gene Stealers. But these guys here are defensive and pretty much can keep objectives contested until the rest of the Tyranids arrive and clear the day. So this is why I think they work out really, really well. And I take one as much as possible to make sure I can claim the objective. So those are pretty much all the troops. There is the acidic spore. You've seen it in the army review. I didn't really kind of bring it out. It's pretty used in a lot of other forces, depending on who can drop it in. Of course, he's more popular with my Jim of Valentine, which I use it more often. Other than that, I don't like keeping much else in reserve. Lots of Hormagants. Go right down the middle, go right after your enemy, and you're going to pretty much put a lot of pressure, screening and protecting a lot of your other troops, and then flanking with units of Gene Stealers. You're going to have a really, really successful time with that, and I'll show you that in an army build. Alright, thanks guys.